Hi, I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Grace.
And you're listening to our dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vodacy Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and I am super excited about our guest here today. One of the OGs in the vacation rental world. Brian Page was really kind of made his mark in the Airbnb investing game and then came out with one of probably the best-selling all-time program called the B&B Formula. And so very much understands our world of vacation rental investing. But actually, we're going to ask Brian to talk about a brand new book that he brought out. And so Brian has a new book called Don't Start a Side Hustle. And it really helps you navigate and really decide how you're going to create passive income in this brand new world that we have. And maybe it's with short-term rentals, maybe it's not. Brian does a great job of really unpacking what that journey looks like and really shares a lot of his experience. And so I'm going to dive in and we're going to talk to Brian today. So Brian, thank you so much for joining us on the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
Thanks, Shawn. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm really fortunate to kind of know your whole story. And sometimes one of the biggest mistakes I make is because I know you so well. And like I told people, you've been around this game for a long time. In fact, I was telling you off camera before we hit the record button that I think that probably 90% of the short-term rental investing courses probably spurred off of your training and your course, your original course of B&B Formula. And so I've known about you for a long time. And I know that what you have built and what you've done now is really stack along that success and really continue down that entrepreneurial journey and really sharing that with people now. So could we kind of back up and maybe you take us through where we're at today and why we're talking about Don't Start a Side Hustle?
Yeah. Well, I'll take you all the way back. Let's go back to the early days, which was, for me, I wrote about this in the book, was in high school when my dad said to me, son, one day you're going to have to go get a job and you're going to have to go figure out what you're going to do for a living. And what is that going to be? And I said to him, I don't know, but that whole idea of a job, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, good luck with that. So the rest of my life, I tried to scheme and find ways to not work a job. I did have to take jobs at various times in my life, but I usually got fired from them or I quit them in short order. And I was never designed to work for somebody else. So I knew I was an entrepreneur from the very, very beginning, but it took a while before I found anything that actually worked for me. And that was probably not till right after college.
Yeah. And so when you decide that, I mean, that's a confusing time, right? Like I've been doing this full time for 22 years. I had a job one time for 6 months and that was the only job I ever had. But when you're going through that process, we're looking around, we're like, okay, where do I start? What do I do? Right. Yeah. What was that process like for you? Was there like an aha moment? Was there something that just like kind of smacked you upside the head? What did that look for you back then?
Well, yeah, I got out of college. I went through college, kind of drifted through, got a leisure studies major. Believe it or not, that's a major, which kind of prepares you for going into the leisure industry or hotel hospitality industry. So I ended up doing an internship I was required to do in order to graduate from college. And I went to Hilton Head Resort and I went to the Hilton Resort on Hilton Head. And I was there for the whole summer and I was just bored silly when I wasn't working because it's just a golf community and I don't play golf. So I used to spend my evenings after work in the Barnes and Noble and I was just researching like how to become wealthy. And I was like reading books on stock trading and options and starting businesses and all these things. And I got to the real estate section. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I started reading through real estate books. I ended up reading 100 books that summer, just filling notebooks. I didn't buy any of them. I just read them, put them back on the shelf and ended up giving myself a little mini education. And I decided at that point that real estate was the vehicle for me. And I knew that more people had become millionaires through real estate than any other vehicle. So in short order, after graduating college, went home and found an investor that started selling me properties, no money down. And in just a few months, I had enough properties to live off them, off the cash flow. Now, there was no short-term rentals back then.
Yeah,
I was living off the cash flow, old school, renting them out to tenants. And I quit my job that I had at the time. And I started traveling the world and just had a great lifestyle. Didn't have a ton of money, but I had enough coming in from those properties to do that. And that kind of gave me my first taste of what it is to be truly financially independent. And from that point on, I was like, this is it for me. Like, this is the path. And so that was where I started, was with real estate ownership.
And then was that the last time that you really were in the job world? You started building your portfolio then?
I wish.
Yeah. So what is, like, I always know there's those ups and downs, right? And so it's always so interesting and you actually talk about that in the book, of really being prepared for some of that. But what did that look like? What did, they were just single family long-term rentals at the time? Yeah.
I had single families, duplexes, quads, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I was also developing, I was building, 7-bedroom, 7-bath houses on the beach and doing, spec construction, all this crazy stuff. And everything was going good right up until 2007, 2008. And we all know what happened then, right?
Yeah.
So when all that stuff came due and I couldn't sell my properties, I couldn't finish my construction on my deals. I mean, everything just started collapsing. So I became a millionaire in my 20s, which was my goal. And by 30, 31, somewhere in there, I lost it all. And so I lost all my properties, everything to foreclosure, including my personal home. And I was 1.3 million in the hole. I got a letter from the IRS saying I owed them $1.3 million. Wow. So it was a rough time. Yeah. And so then for several years, I just kind of hid out. I didn't know what to do. And I was doing odd jobs, side hustles. I was working for other people occasionally, just trying to make ends meet. And I knew that I wanted to get back in the cash flow game, but I didn't know how to do it. So I was trying to think of out of the box way to do it. And that's where the whole Airbnb thing came from. That's kind of where I turned the corner, was going from an owner to a controller, which I talked about in the book. And that all just came about by accident, really did. That was back in, say, 2015 or so. So it was a little while ago.
Yeah, that's about when we got into the short-term rental game. And that's when it was starting to pick up enough steam that it felt like a viable asset class. Nowhere near what it is today, but it still started feeling viable, right? Yeah. And so it's very interesting. We had a very similar path where we started off buying those. I mean, we've been doing this for 22 years just as an investor. We've always been in the ownership model and went through a bunch of different asset classes and, short, like long-term rentals, the fix and flip stuff, and then ultimately development deals, right? Because the checks get bigger. But when markets shift around, it's a little different story that you're looking at, like, okay, what do we do here? So you started really getting interested in kind of that controlling the assets, which is the goal with the Airbnbs. You started doing that, and people started recognizing that you were having some success there. And then that was about in 2015. When did you really start feeling like you were hitting your groove in that arena?
Well, I was looking for a way to generate that real estate without owning and I didn't have credit. So that whole idea of leasing properties, renting properties, and then taking them with permission of the owner and listing them on short-term rental sites was what kind of got me going. And I ended up making, several $100,000 that first year. I quit the job that I had at the time. I quit all the side hustles I was doing. I automated my business, so I wasn't operating it day to day. So I truly had passive income again, although this time I owned nothing. So I was what I call a controller, and I talk about this. I'll talk about this a little bit more. So I went from owner to controller. But then, as I got to that point, a lot of people were asking me, "How are you doing what you're doing?" And when I went online to Google, like I went on YouTube and searched for, how to do rental arbitrage or how to scale a short-term rental business. There was not a single video, not one video came, nothing. Nobody was teaching it.
A little different than today.
Very different from today. And I thought, man, I'm either an idiot or I'm sitting on a gold mine. Like, this is going to be big. So I thought, okay, people will pay me for what I know. So I'm just going to record everything that I do. And I wrote down everything that I do and everything how I pitched owners and how I got properties or automated, all that stuff. And I built it into a course. And then I tried to sell it online and nobody wanted it. And that was like almost a year of trying to get it right, figure it out and sell it. And it wasn't until after I figured out kind of the pieces that I was missing that I figured out what I was missing was a webinar. And so I put together a 90-minute webinar. And the very first night I put that webinar online, I closed about a third of the people on the webinar and did like 66,000, 67,000 in sales that first night. And I thought, holy crap, this is a game changer. People were paying me to buy information. So at this point, I became a creator. I was creating assets that generate passive income. And that one course, just that one product, that one webinar has now done 16 million in sales and still sells to this day.
That's awesome.
So I update that course periodically. My students update it, but I don't spend any time on that. So that's a passive income vehicle that pays me over and over and over again. And that's led into all kinds of other digital products and courses and things that I've sold that are also passive. So it's kind of that transition that I went from owner to controller to creator. And now once I started creating wealth again, I took that money to put it back into hard assets, because I do believe you should own, contrary to what some people think. I'm not against ownership. So I took money that I had, put it back into commercial properties and residential properties and the stock market and other places in order to grow that wealth further by being an owner again. So that's kind of the full circle. And that's kind of, it moved beyond where I started, because I was very inspired by Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
As you're familiar with him.
I think
he's great. He's kind of the OG of investing, right?
Yeah.
And he teaches the rich, buy assets, and the poor and middle class do not. They invest in liabilities. Now, I do agree with that, but the thing is, you don't need to own assets anymore, because we're now in a creator economy and we're in a sharing economy. So you can actually create and share assets or control assets without owning anything and create significant cash flow. So that's kind of where I take people on this journey in this book, is to teach them that you don't have to have credit. You don't have to have money. You don't have to take big risks. You can start with a few $100s and launch something that has the potential to make millions. And so that's kind of where I take them on this journey to becoming a passivepreneur.
And that's what I love. And I was telling you, I think before or maybe I said it after we hit play, but Brian, the new book that you put, like, I have a lot of books that come across my desk and we don't have time to read all of them. I read this book and I usually start skimming them. Right. And
that's what I
this
do.
one, Don't Start a Side Hustle. I'm usually like skimming them. So I know the highlights. Well, I found myself reading the whole thing, and I actually went cover to cover. It's an amazing book because what it does is it really takes somebody through that entire journey and step by step how they do it. And like, to your point, you say, hey, I'm not against owning assets. It's not where I wanted to start, right? Or it may not be where I would tell somebody else to start. You talk about a lot of different things in the book, and I have a whole bunch of notes. We won't get to them through the whole thing because I have all these questions, because I was like, man, this was such a great point. This is such a great point. And I started looking at my notes and said, okay, chapter 1, I want to talk about this. Chapter 2, I'm like, well, I'm talking about all the chapters. Like, for all of you listening, we're going to have at the end, Brian's going to exactly point you where to go to get Don't Start a Side Hustle, and actually some more information for our listeners beyond that. But so I don't want to talk about the whole book, but if you don't mind, I'd love to talk about some of the key points in it, if we can dive into them.
Let's do it. Let's go.
And one of them was, chapter 10, you really talk about the path to prosperity, right? We talk about how everything is possible. And it, like, to your point, like, you don't have to have money. You don't have to have credit. You can do and reach your goals depending on what they are. There is a vehicle. Brian talks about passive income vehicles, PIVs, in the book, and he lists a whole bunch of them, right? Go get the book. And if you're like, I don't know where to start, go get the book. And he's got a whole bunch of them for you. But the point of that is also, you're not going to wake up one day and then everything's just going to be there for you. There is work. There is a path to follow. It's not going to be really easy, right? And there's ways, and then you talk about that, but then my favorite chapter of the book is the baker and the farmer. And where, and it's one of my favorite, like that's one of my favorite parts, is the difference, because I think the mindset of so many is, I'm going to be the baker, not the farmer. Do you want to, would you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Now, before I go into that, one of the things that's probably crossing people's minds that we didn't talk about, I don't know why we didn't bring this up, is, why do I say don't start a side hustle? Isn't Airbnb a side hustle? Well, the difference between a side hustle and passive income, which is what this book is all about, is that a side hustle is dependent on you. You stop hustling, the money stops. So an Uber is a perfect example of a side hustle. I Ubered at one time. Well, most of us have tried Ubering. If your butt's not in the seat, you don't make money.
Right.
On the contrary, if you have an Airbnb business, it's 100% automated, doesn't require hardly any of your time to manage it. That is passive income by definition. So that's the difference between a side hustle. Now, it's very important that you choose the right vehicle, and we're going to get into that in a minute. I just wanted to get that out there, that this is the idea here, is that it has to be passive in order to qualify as a passive income vehicle. Now, the baker and the farmer. Okay, so you're the first person to ask about this, and I love this chapter. The baker and the farmer are two people that use seeds, and I liken seeds to your money. Okay, everybody has money. At some point, even if it's a couple dollars extra per month, everybody can have some money, right? You might have little less than other people, but money is the key to getting to the next level. You got to use your money and invest it. Now, most people take their seeds, their money, and they consume it. They eat it. So in other words, you can take seeds and you can create bread, and you can eat that bread. Now, it gives you instant, you get a payoff instantly. Bread is warm, it's delicious, it's yummy, it's hard to resist. Who wouldn't want to make bread with their seeds? But smart people don't consume their seeds. They plant their seeds. They put them in a field and they grow an entire crop of wheat that could feed them bread forever, right? So the
Right.
idea here is that most people don't look at their money that way. They consume all that they have. Usually the average American consumes way more than they have each month. They go into debt. They die in debt. And so they never have the ability to take that money and invest it into something that could pay them passively. So the idea here is you want to take your dollars, you want to carve out as many dollars as you can on a regular basis to be able to invest into these passive income vehicles. Now, for some people, they have a lot of money. They can write a big check. You can put a down payment on a house or an apartment or a short-term rental, and boom, you've got cash flow. Some people need to start from scratch, and they might need to do something where it's just a few $100s or a few $1,000s. For example, to get my course off the ground, maybe took a $2,000. It wasn't much to get off the ground, and the ROI is astronomical for something like that. So the idea here is that you need to think about your money, even when you have very little. That's the most important time to think about your money as seeds. And you're going to plant those seeds in the right place. And the key is you have to plant your money, and more importantly, your time, only into things that pay you passively. Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that make really big bucks and they have zero time. They're time bankrupt. They have no time, they have no health, they have nothing. All they have is a big income. But if
they've got a major side hustle, business, right?
They have a glorified side hustle. Now, we don't want to say that because entrepreneurs, they would be, some people are offended when I say that. You make big money, but you're hustling all the time. That's all you do. So that's kind of where I come from.
And I love the analogy too, because we've got the seeds, and you can say, okay, I'm going to take my resources. Your seeds are your resources, your time, your money. Where are you going? What are you going to do with those resources? You're going to enjoy them right now, today, and bake the bread, or are we going to take them and we're going to plant them? Well, planting seeds takes a little while before we see the fruits of that labor.
It's not fun being a farmer.
Exactly. Nobody wants to farm a field. Nobody wants to do that, but the payoff is huge at the end if we really have the discipline to do that. And I love that, that you talk a lot about that. It's not just like, hey, the sky's going to open up and you're going to have all this money and all this time. There's ways to do it, and you can really compress time. And you talk about a lot of ways to compress time, right? Modeling versus mastery, and all those different things of ways we can compress time and really leverage other people's resources to be able to take our resources, leverage their experience and knowledge and expertise, and really compress that time. So there's ways to do that. And you talk a lot about that in the book as well.
Yeah. So time is a big theme throughout the book, because I believe that wealth is a measure of more than just your net worth or your income. Okay. I believe wealth is a combination of time plus wealth. Money plus time plus free choice. So if you have a lot of cash flow, you have a lot of net worth, you have a lot of money, that's great. But if you don't have the time to enjoy it, what good is it? If you don't have the choice, in other words, somebody else dictates what you do every day, you could be very highly paid, but you're probably not going to have a lot of satisfaction in life or be able to do the things you want to do because you're a slave of somebody else. You got the golden handcuffs, right? So I think wealth is those three elements. But the most important concept in the book I talk about, if you remember this, is the idea of exponential versus linear vehicles. So passive income vehicles need to be exponential in order for you to consider them. So there's a lot of businesses you can start that can be quite lucrative, but they're not exponential. An example, or there's a lot of jobs that can pay you quite well, but they're not exponential. So for example, if you're a surgeon, you make $600,000 a year, but you want to make 10 times that the next year, there's very little chance you can go from 600,000 to 6 million because you're not in an exponential vehicle. It's you are the vehicle, right? Some people will say, well, that's enough money for me, but you get the idea. Some jobs, as a general rule, jobs are not exponential, and a lot of businesses are not. They're not exponential. So you want to find something that has the potential to go exponential on income, but at the same time, exponentially less time invested. So as you go on, it might take a lot of effort. For example, to write a book, this is a passive income vehicle, and I'll explain why it is. But to write a book is a lot of time and effort, a lot of work. But when it's done, it's done. And this book will continue to produce income again and again and again for years from the effort that I did one time. So this has the potential to go exponential, but my time involvement goes down over time. And that's the key, because then your earnings per dollar go to the moon. Yes. And the thing with exponential, it doesn't look like anything's happening for a year. Nothing on the course. Don't make a single dime on the course. And then boom, did $1 million in the first 6 weeks. And then multiple millions from there. And so it literally goes like this, hockey stick. And everybody wonders, how is that even possible? That's beyond what I can believe. It's because I was in an exponential vehicle. You sell things on the internet, that's exponential. It just is. So so that's kind of what I get people to start thinking about, is most people are working hard in the wrong vehicle. And if they just got out of the vehicle they're in and got into the right vehicle, they'd be astounded at what they can do in a year or 2 or 3 years. It doesn't take a long time. It's like the
No.
3 to 4 year plan, not the 30 to 40 year plan.
Exactly. Yeah. Our parents' plan is not the plan that we should all be following, right? It's different. And you talk a lot about that in the beginning of the book, right? The difference of what we all kind of, I say we all, most of us grew up believing certain things, and that those belief systems carry through. But the world has changed, right? The vehicles are different now. Our opportunities are way different. And so I love, and I hope you guys that are listening caught that, what Brian was just talking about that exponential, being able to have a product or your income grows, but it might be inversely related in the beginning, where your time and effort is way more in the beginning, but then it continues to drop as your income and your benefits off of that vehicle continue to rise. It's huge. It's so huge when we look, we talk a lot about vacation rentals. One of the things our course is by invitation only, because we are an ownership model. Ownership's not for everyone, right? And it's also, we want to make sure that this vehicle actually fits your property goals and what your actual investment goals are, because maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We have to know that, right? And that's one of the things we talk about with people is, does this vehicle is it going to actually help you meet your goals and what you're actually looking to do? And sometimes the answer is no, it doesn't, right? And you talk a lot about that modeling versus mastery, and finding the right people to help you compress that time so you can leverage other people's knowledge and expertise with coaches and courses or books, whatever. Those are all ways to leverage somebody else's expertise to help you get to where you want to go. And one of the things I love when you said there's only two ways that you lose by investing with other people's expertise is, the first is you don't do what they say and it doesn't work. The next is you do what they say and it doesn't work. And both of those are your responsibility. I loved that your point there of saying, listen, there's a lot of people out there that are lending their expertise that might not be the right fit for you, right? And so, but it's our responsibility to figure out how we're going to really compress and time and leverage somebody else's expertise. I love that point that you made.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally believe in that. And let me give you some other examples, because a lot of people are like, okay, I need more examples of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So short-term rentals is a great thing. We're not going to talk about that any further, but let me just give you a few examples. So some things that are passive, that took very little time to set up, that pay over and over and over again. So as an example, software and calculators. Software calculators, you can even add in apps. Any kind of product that you sell that's totally digital, that does a function that somebody can buy. So I'll give you an example. I created this software. It's called a deal analyzer, and all it does is analyzes the profitability on a short-term rental. Okay. Yep. So you put in the rent amount, you put in the utilities, you put in the day rate, the weekend rate, and you have these little dials. You can slide everything around, and boom, it spits out a cash flow number. Now, the reason I created that is because there was nothing like that existed. When I started playing with mortgage calculators, I was like, okay, this is kind of like what I want, but not really, where you slide the APR and all that stuff. So I said, let's create it. So I went on Upwork. I found some developers in India. They gave me a quote, a little less than $2,000. They built this thing. I kept going back and forth, back and forth. Finally, when it was done, it worked. And I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. So that product, which I created 4 or 5 years ago, to this day has done like almost $1 million in sales. I sell it for $47. People love it. It does what it's supposed to do. And I created it one time. I didn't even make it. I hired somebody to make it.
Yeah.
So it sells automatically, still sells to this day all the time. It's called the B&B Deal Analyzer. That's a perfect example. I don't know how to code. I don't even know how to build a website, but I hired somebody. You can hire anybody you want. You can hire a PhD over in India now for $8 an hour. I mean, you can find what you need anywhere online. So I built that and sold it. Another example is, let's do private labeling. Okay. So private labeling, let me give you an example right here. I have Passivepreneur swag. This is brand new swag. See, Passivepreneur. I don't design these bottles. I don't ship them. I don't warehouse them. I don't collect the payments. I don't do anything. I literally don't do anything. All I did was I took a day to come up with the idea. I found a company that I like. I had them give me a bid on what they would charge and their markup and all that kind of stuff. I charge a little bit more on my website. People buy those. Every time they buy those, I make a few bucks. That took me one day to set up. Now, how much will that pay me for the next 5-10 years? I don't know, but that's a total perfect example of a passive income vehicle. So private labeling. Now, a lot of companies do this. Amazon does this. When you go to Amazon, you buy
tons of people on Amazon. Yeah, right.
Amazon warehouses stuff, but they don't actually manufacture things. So they stamp their name on things. This is what a lot of companies do. Even luxury brands that you probably love do not make their own products. They label them. So private labeling is an example. referral programs and affiliate marketing. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on and on. People
and Brian,
affiliate marketing is amazing.
One thing on that private labeling, it doesn't always have to be a physical product. We're now private labeling a software program inside of that we are going to that was already built. And now it's going to be our Vodacy software program that we're using. We're private labeling somebody else's software program. So it doesn't always have to be a physical product when you're private labeling.
I totally agree. Software. So you're a controller.
Yep.
So that's an example where you didn't create it and you didn't necessarily buy it. You're not an owner. You're not a creator. You're a controller. So you have the permission or the rights or whatever to control it and create cash flow from it and offer it to your audience. So that's another example. Affiliate marketing is brilliant. Affiliate marketing means, simply for those who don't know, I'm selling somebody else's product, somebody else's services, and I get a commission. Yeah. And even if you start with no email list, somebody said, well, I don't have an email list, because when I press send on the email, it can generate tens of thousands of dollars or more. So people say, well, I don't have an email list. Even if you had 100 people on your email list and 2 of them were to buy a $2,000 product, that's $4,000 in sales, and you get half that. You get $2,000 on 100 people. I mean, that's you just got to start somewhere. I wasn't born with an email list. Nobody is. So you could do that in email. You could do it on social media. If you're a social media influencer or you have an audience, anything that people would trust you to go look into that they would buy, and you didn't create that product, and that you get cash from it. And if you can automate that process, guess what? You have another vehicle. So these are examples. And then there's so many examples I go into. I won't talk.
And you have a lot of them in the book as well. There's a lot of these examples, and even beyond the book, you've got a resource that they can go to to go right here. The hope. Exactly. Yep. A QR code.
There's a QR code. So here's why people say, why would you write a book? There's not much money in books, and that's true. I only make a little bit of money each time one of these books sells. But when you go to my book and you scan that little QR code, it takes you to a website. And that website has a lot of these vehicles. In fact, it's got my top 10. I've got 27. It tells you my current 27 sources of income, my number 1, my top 9, all that stuff. And then a bunch of other ideas I've never even tried myself, because there's hundreds of them. So you go there, and if you were to sign up for any of those products or services, guess who gets paid? Me. Yeah. In fact, there's 10 different ways I get paid from the book. So the money is not the book. The money's in the book. And I actually tell people in the book, I'm not hiding what I'm doing. Just watch what I'm doing. I'm doing it right here. That's called an embedded offer. I have embedded offers that are in the book. So I'm showing how you can have income vehicles inside of other income vehicles, which is totally meta. But that's the idea behind this, is you look at what I'm doing and then do it for yourself. Look at how I'm creating income and do it for yourself. And that's how I like to demonstrate, rather than, I'm not just telling you how to do it, I'm demonstrating it.
Yeah, I love it. And it's even we have people you've created a course, right? And somebody will come to me and say, well, I can't create a course. I haven't done that. Maybe I don't feel like I've got the expertise. Well, go sell somebody else's course that is really good at it. And and they say, well, why would somebody
need to create anything? That's the brilliance.
Right. Well,
some people are.
I know I've created a course, and they always are like, why would the course creator want me to sell their product? I promise you, we like affiliate marketers, right?
Oh yeah, we do.
How many of your courses were helped sell with affiliate marketers? It happens all day.
Millions and millions and millions. So millions of dollars of my course were sold, where half of that money went to an affiliate.
So millions of dollars went to somebody else. Yeah, there's somebody else. Opportunities. The point is, the opportunities are available no matter where you're at in this process, right? And now let's say, okay, and you talk about this in the book, but there's all these opportunities, and it's important and I totally agree with you on this. It's important not to run down all these roads at once, right? We go down one road, you build it. So sometimes it can feel overwhelming from somebody that's starting off. Here in Brian's story, and he's got all these different passive income vehicles set up. Well, it didn't start off like that, right? Brian started off with a course, and then Brian started off building on that, and then started layering on different passive income vehicles. And I 100% believe that laser focus is the way that somebody's going to really, really get to their goals way faster. And you do talk about that. So I know you agree with that, but you don't want to run down a whole bunch of roads at once, even though there's that many opportunities, right? So how do we choose the right opportunity?
Well, the world that we live in now the challenge is not a lack of opportunity. The challenge is we're drowning in opportunity. We're drowning in noise. We're drowning in information. Everybody's yelling at us. Everybody's marketing to us. There's always it's so distracting. So the advice that I talk about in the book is that you need to choose one vehicle, just one that resonates with you, one that is proven. Okay, so you don't want to do something that's not proven. Okay, unless you're Elon Musk and you're going to colonize Mars, don't do something nobody's ever done before. Just do something that works. Okay, and you can find people that have done it. Okay. So there's lots and lots of people that have done these vehicles, besides just Brian or Shawn. You find a vehicle that you know is proven, and then you put all of your time and effort, all your extra time, all your effort into that one vehicle until you get it to about, and this is if you're going to quit your job. So until you get it to about 150% of whatever you take home pay is. So if you're taking home 50 grand a year, I would recommend you don't quit your job until you're making 75 a year from your passive income vehicle. And more importantly, that you have that vehicle automated. Now, at that point, you have a choice. Some people want to quit their job, some people don't. But let's say you're going to walk away from your job and now you're going to live off that vehicle. Now you're going to start working on vehicle number 2. You're going to have a backup. Maybe you work on 5 or 10 because one of them, you're planning on one of those to be a runaway, right? They're not all going to be equal. One of them is going to be a runaway success. Right. So the idea here is that you want to just work on one until you get it to whatever your goal is. So if your goal is, I'm going to make $100,000 with short-term rentals and I'm going to do it in the next 6 months. Okay. I'm going to do that $100,000. Don't look at anything else until you hit that 100 grand. You don't have permission to do that. You don't give yourself permission until you hit that $100,000 mark. So don't be doing short-term rentals and trying to do MLM. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to be a marketer and I'm going to blog and I'm going to, it's crazy. It's crazy what people do. And then they wonder why they're not successful. And it's like, you only have so many hours in the day. Just do one thing. And this is what it comes down to, Shawn. I really believe this. People don't have belief that the vehicle they're in is going to work. That's why they hedge their bets. If you really believe that it worked, if you really truly believe that the vehicle you're in could get you to the goal that you have, whether it's $10,000, $100,000, $1 million a year, whatever it is, then you wouldn't be looking at other things. You just be like, that might work over there, but I got to focus on what I'm on. So like for me, I got really distracted at one point by commercial real estate. Okay. And I invest passively in commercial, but I got distracted by some buddies who were doing commercial real estate. And I was like, meanwhile, all of my businesses are just taking off and I'm focused over here and I'm watching them and I'm thinking I could go over there and make gazillions of dollars in commercial real estate if I wanted to. But I was like, dang it, I know I could, but I could also do really well here if I just focused, So I had to literally tell myself that might be an opportunity. It might even be a bigger opportunity, but I cannot take my eye off the ball right now. I need to focus on and when I did that, my revenues went up 10 times in a year, like 10x my business, as my boy Cardone likes to say, just by focusing, just by where I applied my focus. So that's the biggest mistake I see people do. It's not that they're not smart enough. It's not that they don't have the information. We all know that all the information is available, and most of it for free. It's not that. It's that they don't focus. They don't choose. They don't say, I'm not looking at other crap. I've chosen. This is what I'm doing. Right. I'm going to die on this hill.
Yes, I love it. I'm glad you made that point, especially when we were talking about all of these different options. You want to pick an option that works for you, a vehicle that's going to help you meet your goals, and then run down that road. And with belief, 100% belief that it's going to work, right? And we talk about a lot of times with these books resonate with somebody that may be looking for a change, looking to quit their job. They don't like their situation right now. But I would challenge those of you that are listening because I hear this all the time. You might as well, Brian, people say, I like my job. I like what I'm doing. I'm making good money. I like what I'm doing. The point is, we all want options, right? You don't have to quit your job. You want to have the option and the choice to quit your job if you ever wanted to, right? You may not today, but maybe tomorrow you do. And if you took the time to build these passive income vehicles into your overall plan, now you've got options. That's what life is about, is choices and options, right? And that's where I think it's so important. The last part of your book, you have it split into 4 parts, is the warnings. And it's brilliant to put the warnings in there. And you have a number of different warnings. One of my favorite ones is in chapter 35, and you talk about the indifference warning, because I love it. Yeah, that it's not just like one or 2 warnings. They all are warnings these are warnings that are obstacles that are going to be obstacles to our success and obstacles to succeeding. The indifference warning is that warning of saying, hey, listen, life's pretty good, right? I don't have this burning desire. I don't have this, I don't really have to go change what I'm doing right now. I always tell people it's really easy when your back's against the wall to come out swinging, right? Yeah. It's really hard when it's good and comfortable, right? Jim Collins, I love his book, Good to Great, right? It's really hard to go from good to great because when things are good, we're not as motivated. We don't have that burning desire to keep moving forward. And I love that warning as well for those that are saying, okay, I feel like I'm fairly successful. Okay, what if you took those resources you have now and just kept building? And I just love that section of the book. Do you have a favorite one in there? I mean, obviously there's a number of them in there.
Well, there's a number of them in there. One of the things that I found about a lot of books, and I read a lot of business books. This library is full of books, and so I'm a big fan of books. But a lot of books, they tell you the how-to, they tell you the upside, they kind of paint a nice rosy picture, but they don't tell you all the things that are going to come against you.
Right.
And a lot of times, people may have success, but it goes away as soon as they hit a major pitfall, major setback, or they're on their way, they're on the path. And then they have that big dip. They have that big, something happens that throws them off, and then they quit and they go on to the next opportunity, which is what happens over and over and over again. So I wanted to spend a lot of time talking about the things that are going to hold you back, and not be Pollyanna about the fact that there are going to be things that are going to get in your way. You're going to have obstacles. So you might as well know what they are in advance, at least the ones I can think of, so that when they arrive, you're like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite ones is let's see here. Ignore the squirrels.
Yeah, love it.
So Ignore the Squirrels is based on the movie Up, where there's a dog named I think his name is Doug, right? So Doug is a golden retriever, and every time Doug senses there's a squirrel around him, he's squirrel. He's always distracted by squirrels, and that is the typical entrepreneur. That's the typical business person. They're constantly distracted by things, and that's what separates the men from the boys, honestly, from the women from the girls, is that the big boys and the big girls, they have the ability they're just not phased. They're not looking at other things that doesn't take them off their game. They're focused on their game. And so I think that not being that kind of person where you're easily thrown off by squirrels is very, very, very important. It's a character quality. You have to develop the ability to choose and then follow through. So it's commitment to yourself. It's keeping your word to yourself, that you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do anything else. So, and it doesn't take a lot of commitment. It's not like you're committing for the next 30 years, like most people do in a career. You're committing to, like, I'm going to give it 12 months, and I'm going to give it everything I have for 12 months. And most things, if the kind of things I'm talking about, if you do 12 months of concerted effort, you're going to see some results. 6 months, you're going to start seeing results, and then you're going to be like, okay, I'm being rewarded for my focus. I'm going to reward myself for another 12 months and focus further, and I'll reevaluate in 12 months. So that's kind of the way that I do it, at least.
Well, and that's why I think that those warnings are laid out so well, because it's not that we want to focus on all the challenges. It's we want to be prepared for them, right? You're informing us so that we can now prepare for them when we reach them. It's like a lot of times we're at the bottom of the hill and the castle's at the top of the hill, and there's this pretty girl up there that we want to get to, and we think we're just going to walk up the hill. Well, if somebody says, hey, around that next corner, there's a big ass dragon, and you need to bring something to fight the dragon.
You got to go against the big boss. Yeah.
Right. And so if I have to fight the dragon, it's nice to know the dragon's there so I can be prepared, right? And get past the dragon, versus if the dragon surprises me and these challenges arise, which they're going to, and I have to run back down the hill and I give up on what I really wanted, is to breach the castle. And that's what I think that you do so well in the warnings. It's like, okay, I'm going to inform you about some of these really common things that hold people back, and that get them to say, okay, maybe I don't want this as much as I said I did, and turn the other way. And then so that they're prepared for it, and so that they can keep moving forward. It's not that
it's really just two things. It's either there's two things that keep people from getting what they want. Number one is not getting started, which I say is the vast majority. Vast majority of people don't get started. They think they got started because they're learning and they're researching and they're planning and they're studying and they're obsessing over, I need more knowledge, before they actually take any action. So they never get started. That's number one. The number two is they get started, they have some success, then they fall in one of these pitfalls, one of these traps, one of these big warnings that I'm talking about, and then they're done. And then they go back to their safe, where it's safe. And I've, trust me, I've been there before. Go back to where it's safe, and then they don't ever achieve their goal either. So it's usually one of those two things. And I think if you can get started, literally taking actions that are going to take you closer to your goal, and then you just relentlessly do that, even during the tough times, it's just inevitable you're going to win. I mean, you're going to win. It might win slower than other people, but winning is winning. You're going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, speaking of taking action, I know we can talk about this all day long. I love these types of conversations, but let's tell people, we've been talking about this book. Let's tell them where they can go get it, right? Where can we take action and go get a copy of the book and really dive into what we've been talking about?
Okay, so here's the thing. This book is on Amazon, but don't go to Amazon yet, because if you go to the site that I'm going to give you here in a moment, you're going to be able to get almost $400 in bonuses for free, for the same price as what the book is on Amazon. You can get the book there. So what I recommend you do is you go to watchfreetraining.com. Let me share it with you here. Watchfreetraining.com. Now on this site, I'm going to give you a brief 18-minute in-depth video on like what's in this book even further. So you go there. Now, when you get the book there, you can buy it on Amazon. You just copy your order number on Amazon and paste it in the form that I have, and you're going to get instant access to 4 different bonuses. You're going to get a free audiobook download, which is me narrating the first 3 chapters of the book and the introduction. You can get that free, like instantly. You're going to get a PDF of the first few chapters of the book. You're going to get a passivepreneur workshop where me and another passivepreneur are talking about what we do and exactly what to do next to get started doing this. And then the 4th thing is you get access to a private Facebook group of passivepreneurs. So you get a little bit more access to me, and you get to meet other people like me, and it's really, really cool. So all that stuff totally free for buying one $26 hardcover copy of the book on Amazon. So go to watchfreetraining.com and get the book there, and I'll give you all those bonuses. You'll get them immediately after buying the book.
Love it. Awesome. So we will, those of you listening on your favorite podcast that you're not seeing the screen right now, we will link this on both the YouTube and the podcast show notes for watchfreetraining.com. Go check out the book. Don't start a side hustle. I went through it cover to cover. It's one of it'll be one of those books that I recommend for a long time. Brian did an amazing job with it, and I really appreciate you spending the time, Brian, today with us and really talking about it. Any final thoughts for the listeners as we run down this road?
Yeah, the final thought I would say is, books have changed my life. I would say that the best investment dollar per dollar you can make in yourself is a book. Somebody asked me, who's your best mentors? I said, they're all dead. They're all in books. So anything you want to find that can change your life is found in a book. I don't know any book that's like this. It's been inspired by some other books that have changed my life, but there's nothing quite like this. And so if you have an interest in passive income, living a better lifestyle, having more time, and maybe jettisoning the job or getting out of that crazy grind that most entrepreneurs are in, this might be the book for you. And I hope it serves you if you do get it.
Awesome. Love it. So guys, you go to watchfreetraining.com. We'll post it in the show notes. You can go get your copy today. And if you got any value out of this episode, we always ask that you share it with somebody that you know, and hopefully their lives can be changed as well. And thank you again, Brian, for being here. For all of you listening, we know how valuable your time is, and we do appreciate you spending it with us. And I always leave you with one challenge, and that is to go pick one thing that you can do today to start building that life that you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.